second down. Warren looking for an alley. He's got the end zone, and the Steelers are an extra point away from tying it.
Really nice job by Isaac Seumalo. He's the guy that gets the big push. Watch 73 right here. Gets the down block, but he climbs to level 2. That really gives Jaylen Warren the opportunity right there to find that crease and get in the end zone.
I just love the fight in this group. They don't blink, man. They cut their eyelids off, man. They go at it. And it is, like I told them, it's not a compliment. It's required. I'm just acknowledging it.
Welcome into the Steelers Extra Point presented by Microsoft Surface. I'm Hannah Mears, joined by Mike Prisuta of Steelers.com and Steelers Nation Radio. We have former Pittsburgh Steeler Arthur Moats, also a part of Steelers Nation Radio, and my twin wearing the gold, and Shelby Cassesse, a contributor to Steelers.com as well. Guys, welcome to Victory Monday. The Steelers went to LA and they beat the Rams, a final score of 24-17. But in this matchup, it really was a tale of two halves. So I just want to start out with your general thoughts from the first half to the second half of that game, Prisuta. What did you see?
Playmaking. Think back to the first quarter. There was a deep ball from Kenny Pickett to George Pickens against one-on-one coverage. He caught it out of bounds. That could have gone inside the 10-yard line or maybe even into the end zone. There was a crossing route to Deontay Johnson. He caught it, ran inside the 8-yard line. There was a penalty on George Pickens for an illegal block. When they can get out of their own way, they're better at offense than when they absorb negative plays, commit penalties. You know, it's not exactly rocket science here. When they play better, they score points. And I just think they stuck with it. They figured it out. They gradually got it together, and they did in that fourth quarter what I think a lot of us have been waiting for about 5 games to see on a regular basis. Big step forward, I thought.
Yeah, I agree, man. Massive step forward in terms of just the in-stadium execution. The big issue that I've been seeing when we're talking about this team, it's not that they don't have the talent. It's not like they don't have the calls. But a lot of times it's you just missed this block, or this route wasn't crisp enough, or this throw was just a little bit off. And I usually associate that with this team being young offensively. Young players are inconsistent at times. Young players take a little bit of time to warm up and get acclimated to what they're seeing in stadium. And I think that that's also why we saw that first half look a little bit slow, a little bit off. Even though we could see some of the upticks, some of the improvements, it was still just slightly off. But then that second half hit, and what do we see? Them connect on those throws like Prisuta just brought up. Those runs that weren't really hitting in the first half started to pick up 5, 7, and things like that. And I just really thought that it was more so the young team got acclimated. It started to slow down for them. And that's one of the things that we want to happen sooner rather than later. But it's still good to see that we could be 4-2 in this process of figuring out that part of it. But as a whole, excellent step forward in terms of putting it again in stadium and finishing the way that they did.
Guys, I think you take that second half of football, frame it, hang it up somewhere, because that is exactly how you want the Steelers team to play, especially on offense. Arthur, as you mentioned, getting those chunk yards in the run game, that really opened up things in the passing game, allowed some of your playmakers like George Pickens, Deontay Johnson to make plays late in the game. And on top of that, I thought they had a lot of success on the weighty downs. We hear Mike Tomlin talking about the weighty downs a lot of times, and in previous games not doing so well on those weighty downs. This time they were converting on third downs, they were getting into third and manageable situations, and they were capitalizing on those big moments. Everyone did their job and did it well, and that's that complementary style of football we always talk about wanting to see the Steelers play.
Yeah, Shelby, you just mentioned those possession downs, and in that previous graphic, you saw the difference from the first half to the second half. 0 for 5 on third downs in the first half, and then obviously no red zone conversions as well. So, Mike, when you look at those stats, what do you think, if you could pick one thing that was the biggest difference maker in the second half, based off of those statistics, what do you think it would be?
It's got to be third down, right? As we just mentioned a moment ago. If you can possess the ball, you can find a rhythm. If you can find a rhythm, you can get more people involved. If you get more people involved, you can continue to possess the football, and the whole thing kind of repeats as necessary. Conversely, I think, the Rams didn't have the ball very often in the second half, and that limited what they can do. They kind of got out of rhythm. All of a sudden, Matthew Stafford's back there feeling some pressure. The plays aren't clicking, with the regularity they did in the first half. Get it to 3rd and 3 as opposed to 3rd and 8. Again, not really breaking any new ground here, but there's a reason things happen the way they do, and the Steelers' ability to stay with it probably deserves some credit. Mike Tomlin said in the open it did not, but I was impressed by their ability not to blink offensively and defensively. And by the time they got to that fourth quarter, they didn't have to worry about blinking because they were firing on both sides of the ball, and the game played out the way it did. But I think you saw a lot of the things they've talked about finally starting to come to fruition, and it tells me anyway they've been barking up the right tree all along. They're just barking a little louder now.
No, absolutely. They definitely are. And I'm glad you said it, but being better on 1st and 2nd down in that second half put them in a lot more favorable 3rd down situations. We saw that 3rd and 17 in the first quarter, and everybody was upset that we were throwing a screen pass and not trying to be aggressive. But we're minimizing damage. We're saying to ourselves, we're not going to put Kenny in a position to have a negative play, whether it be a turnover or a sack. We're going to throw the screen, low risk, high reward play, kick the field goal, worst case. Second half, we weren't in a lot of 3rd and 17s. It was 3rd and 3s, 3rd and 4s, 3rd and 1s. And that's the area where we're able to operate and able to, just be a lot more efficient in those areas. And that was a big reason why that Rams offense did get out of rhythm. They were on the sideline for too long, but that's all 3 phases of football working together. And it was good to see that happen and equate to another victory.
And guys, I think we'd be remiss if we didn't mention the offensive line here in that second half in terms of first versus second half, because you know what? They pretty much neutralized Aaron Donald for an Aaron Donald game that was pretty much on the lower end of his productivity. Now, create that chaos, much like TJ Watt does for the Steelers, but the offensive line did a great job of neutralizing him and keeping him out of the game for the most part. And I think the more they got confident with doing that, it allowed them to open up the run game a bit more. And we've talked about the run game producing quite a bit already, but part of that, a lot of that was on the offensive line, their ability to contain Aaron Donald, open up those holes. And again, we talk about the running game, allowing the passing game to get open. So the offensive line really did their jobs in that second half as well. Kenny Pickett really worked with a clean pocket most of the time and had some time to make those big throws.
Shelby, you were talking about that run game. Sorry, Arthur, I'll throw this one back to you since I think you want to get in on the run as well. 0 rushing touchdowns through 5 games for the Steelers, 3 yesterday, including Kenny Pickett's first of the season. Arthur, did you like the efficiency that was building there, and how can they continue that moving forward?
Yeah, absolutely like the efficiency. And to piggyback on what Shelby was talking about with this offensive line, they've been under fire all season long. And this is one of those matchups where people talked about Aaron Donald and who was going to block him. What are we going to do to be able to give Kenny some time? And I just thought as a whole, they played pissed off. That second half, man, they were winning the line of scrimmage in the pass game and in the run game. And when you look at the way we were able to run the ball as a whole in the second half, Najee and Jaylen Warren, they were hitting that ball downhill. I mean, I think Jaylen averaged 5.3 per tote. Najee was right, I think 3.8, 3.9. So when you're looking at that, we're picking up good yardage. But you're not getting that if this offensive line isn't blocking the way they're supposed to. But I also have to highlight the receivers, because when we talk about some of these runs spitting for, double-digit yards, or obviously the touchdown run from Jaylen Warren, look at the receivers on the perimeter. Deontay Johnson, George Pickens, those guys are giving it all they have to keep those DBs from, being able to come in here and make those type of plays at the end. So when we talk about everybody being a part of the run game and the blocking element, that is what was happening, especially in that second half yesterday.
Yeah, you could throw Allen Robinson in there too, Arthur. Mm-hmm. That touchdown run, the Warren 13-yard touchdown run is a great example of just how much better they were playing at that particular time. That was exquisitely blocked from the center on the front side to Dan Moore on the far side, and Isaac Seumalo able to help Moore with a double team and then get up to the second level. Sometimes it works out the way you draw it up when you execute it, and then it looks real pretty. And boy, if you go back those 3 possessions from the 1:22 mark, 1 minute 22 seconds left in the third quarter through the end of the game, it was touchdown, make enough first downs to kill the clock and take 3 kneel downs. and kill the game out. And, Kenny Pickett, 9 for 9 in that span for 140 yards. He hit 6 different receivers. They hit their 3 longest plays of the game in these 3 possessions. And, by the way, Warren averaged 6.5 running it, and Najee Harris 4.0 running it, and they both scored touchdowns. That was they finally played the kind of football they think they're capable of playing. And I don't know about you guys. I kind of like to see some more of that, maybe a little earlier in the Jacksonville game.
Prisuta, you were just talking about those 6 different receivers. Let's focus in on 2 of them really quick. Deontay Johnson came back after the bye week. You saw his effect in that game right away, but it also opened up a lot of things for Pickett to Pickens, which the announcers were having a field day with in that second half. Shelby, how do you think having Deontay back helped that connection of Pickett and Pickens grow even stronger in this game?
Yeah, even remove Deontay Johnson's playmaking ability and him touching the football. Just remove that aspect of it, and still he has an impact. Just his presence on the field, you're naturally going to have to pay attention to him if you're opposing defenses. So that really takes a lot of the pressure off of George Pickens. And secondly, prior to Deontay Johnson coming back, you got the sense that opposing defenses felt a lot more comfortable stacking the box, and that's kind of where maybe the run game was running into some issues. So Deontay Johnson being back just additionally takes eyes away from so many other weapons on offense, Pickens especially, and then add the playmaking ability, add the expert route running, add the confidence and the experience. That is how Kenny Pickett is going to get better and better, by building those relationships and having a guy like Deontay Johnson out there who you can kind of look to in those bigger moments to make a play. And having George Pickens as well, that's going to give Kenny Pickett just more options, more confidence to make a play in those big moments. So no matter how you look at it, Deontay Johnson as a distraction or as a playmaker, he is much better off being on the field for the Steelers.
Shelby, I couldn't agree with you more. I don't want to say security blanket, because Deontay Johnson is so much more than that. But that third down at the start of the fourth quarter, it was looking pretty bleak still when the third quarter turned to the fourth quarter. And they're facing 3rd and 8, and that's when Pickett hit Johnson for the catch and run, the big play deep into Rams territory. And I asked him after the game if that was a result of, reading the coverage, and that's where he was supposed to go with the ball, or did he just want to go to Deontay Johnson in that moment? And Kenny Pickett said it was a little bit of both. He wanted to get the ball in Johnson's hands, but it was also single coverage and a good opportunity. I think the longer those two play together, Deontay Johnson is really going to become that guy that Kenny Pickett can look to first and foremost. When this season was starting, I was envisioning Deontay Johnson having more catches and maybe George Pickens having more yards, because he would be a deeper threat or a bigger play threat. But to have the veteran guy, Johnson, not just to draw coverage away from Pickens, but to be that guy you can trust. Hey, I'm in trouble. Where is he? Give him the ball. Let's see what he can do with it. Changes the entire landscape of the passing game.
100%. And the big thing with Deontay is the separation that he creates. George Pickens is an elite combat catch guy, but he's not an elite separation guy. You look at Deontay, that gotta have it 3rd down. You look at him run that deep out to the sideline. Look at the separation he creates at the top of the route. That's the difference when you're talking Deontay versus any of our other receivers, and why, when he's out there, Kenny typically looks better. Because for Kenny, you have a way easier target to throw to. It's not always a highly contested. You don't have to be perfect throwing it to Deontay. You just have a greater margin for error. So it makes it a lot more quarterback friendly. Whereas for Pickens, that's the part of his game where he's continuing to evolve there. But right now, that's not necessarily his strong suit. So for me, man, being able to see Deontay back out there, the longer he's out there, I do anticipate this offense continuing to look a lot better, both in the pass game and in the run game.
Well, this entire Steelers team, it looked better this past Sunday, including the defense. Still to come, we talked a lot about that offense, but the defense between TJ Watt and rookie Nick Herbig getting in on the action with the sack, as well as Larry Ogunjobi. There is a lot of positives from this defensive performance as well. That's coming up next on the Steelers Extra Point, presented by Microsoft Surface.
Out of the empty set on 1st down. Stafford is picked up. It's TJ Watt. And he's down to the 6-yard line. The Pittsburgh defense strikes. And it's Watt with a big play.
Want to get gear direct from the team? Shop all things black and gold at the official Steelers Pro Shop located at Acrisure Stadium. Get the latest sideline apparel and hats, jerseys of your favorite players, authentic memorabilia, custom gear, and exclusives you can only find here. Don't forget, you aren't game day ready without a terrible towel. The Steelers Pro Shop has everything you need to be part of the legendary Steelers Nation. Come experience the Acrisure Stadium shopping environment or shop online at shop.steelers.com.
It's a four-quarter game. We understand as a defense we need to bow up in big-time moments and just try to change the tide of the game. And stopping the run is, again, an issue today. But anytime you can get some sort of spark to get us going and be able to have us start continuing to play good football late in games, I feel like we just need to continue to progress and grow off of it.
A strong defensive performance for the Pittsburgh Steelers, particularly in that second half, and TJ Watt definitely hit the nail on the head with that one. They'll continue that momentum moving forward. This is the Steelers Extra Point presented by Microsoft Surface. TJ Watt, we didn't hear his name with sack yesterday, but we did hear it with interception, and it was huge in the second half. But Prisuta, how big was that interception and what the Steelers were able to do the remainder of that game to get the win?
Well, I mean, it lurched the offense into gear. I mean, they ended up getting their first touchdown. Now, that was difficult. They didn't have to go very far. It was goal to go after Watt got tackled. It was still tough to get it in there. But I think that just it was, as you heard TJ say, the spark. You go into halftime, the Rams had just scored that fluke touchdown. It's 9-3. You know, they're going to be getting the ball first. What if they score and it becomes a two-possession game? It's going to be really fighting uphill. And all of a sudden, the whole thing changed in the blink of an eye. TJ Watt finding a way to make a play, which is what he does. I thought it was interesting talking about Aaron Donald not really doing all that much. TJ Watt didn't do all that much either, but he still found a way to make a spectacular game-changing play. A lot of credit goes to him for what happened yesterday.
TJ Watt. I'm telling you, every defense is better when you have one of them on your team. I'm glad that we have him. Like you said, he doesn't impact the game in terms of the traditional sack, even though he was still impacting the game in terms of how they had to block him and account for him. But it's still good to see that whenever we need to make a play, when it's one of those moments where things don't look the best, we got a guy that is very capable of not just making those type of plays, but he has shown the ability to make them routinely. We don't get surprised as often when we see TJ come up with these type of plays now. He's been doing it for year after year, week after week. So once again, it's just good to see him impact the game the way that he did and really provide the spark. Like you said, man, offense struggling early in the game, get him a short field. Let's get the touchdowns rolling. And like we see, man, once you get that first one, the second one, the third one typically come along with it, man. So it was really good to see that. But love having a TJ Watt on your team. Love it.
And credit to the coaching staff on this one, too, because TJ Watt was having a bit of a tough time getting through, the double and triple team he was, that was put upon him early on in the game. But they looked at it and said, okay, how can we put TJ Watt in a spot for success? So they dropped him in coverage. It's not really his bread and butter. I think I read that he had maybe done it 17 times during this season leading up to that moment. And still, he's able to make a play that's not very routine for him, that required so much athleticism and football knowledge in that moment. I know we're not surprised at TJ Watt making these plays, but I'm still amazed how frequently he comes up in these big moments. And they're not just big moments, they're game-changing moments. And credit to the coaching staff for putting him in the position to make that play.
Yeah, Shelby, in a roundabout way, Mike Tomlin talked about when TJ Watt was being taken out of the game. When you have a playmaker like him, you're doing everything you can to make sure he can still make an impact. And you saw that beautiful read for that interception. It was a game-changing play in that second half, definitely led to a Steelers victory. But the Steelers defense as a whole limited the LA Rams to just one first down in the fourth quarter, which is extremely impressive. And they limited the impact of Stafford and Puka Nacua, which was another name we heard a lot of. Arthur, from a defensive perspective, when you see a guy across from you like Puka Nacua making an impact on the game, how do you think the Steelers defense transitioned to take him out of the equation in the second half?
Yeah, Puka, he's a very talented receiver. He's just young. So a lot of people didn't know about him. Hopefully for the Steelers defense, they did because the tape didn't lie. I think coming into the game, he was 20 or 30 yards out of being the fourth leading receiver in the NFL in terms of receiving yardage. So he's a very talented player. But I thought the big difference first half to second half was, number one, didn't get as many opportunities because their offense wasn't on the field as often. Number two, I thought our pass rush did a way better job in the second half of just creating more havoc. And number three, JPJ. We put Joey Porter Jr. on him a couple of times, and we saw him come up with some big plays against him, possession downs, one-on-one situations. And it was good to see that, the guy that we drafted 32nd overall could stand up and ultimately lock down in those critical moments a guy that looks to be a really promising receiver in this NFL right now.
Yeah, and even when Porter wasn't on Nakua, Arthur, he was out there. 78% of the snaps. He played way more than just the old 6 defensive backs dime thing that he's been doing pretty much exclusively up until the Ravens game. Then he played a little bit more in the base against the Ravens. And what you saw against the Rams, I'm wondering if this is the way they're heading eventually in the secondary, the division of labor. You saw Patrick Peterson play outside corner. You saw him play slot. You saw him play safety. You saw him play that inside position, whatever they call it, in the dime. But the bottom line, Patrick Peterson and Joey Porter Jr. were out on the field a whole lot together. And I think that really helped kind of coalesce the secondary. I wonder if that's the way they're headed. If it is, it'll be an example of building upon what they did against the Rams. A lot of people have been waiting. I've been kind of banging this drum since August or September that Joey Porter Jr. needs to play. He is the 32nd overall draft pick. You brought him here for a reason. Not that he's perfect, not that he didn't get beat, not that his tackling can't get better, just like everybody else who plays quarterback on that team. But, boy, it seemed to work more often than it did yesterday.
Shelby, were you impressed with the impact JPJ had, but not just him, the entire impact of that secondary as well, really stepping up to the occasion? Because when you hear stats of the Rams postgame, you hear a lot of impact of Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua, and the Steelers defense did a great job, as Mike and Arthur were saying, in shutting them down.
Yeah, as for Joey Porter Jr., I mean, it's so impressive for as young as he is and for up until yesterday, as little opportunity as he's gotten. Every time he's out on the field, he's not just adequate or sufficient. He is making plays. He is bringing game-changing moments to the forefront. He's breaking up passes, obviously a big interception against the Ravens leading into the bye. So I'm excited to see him getting a bit more of an opportunity. As Prisuta said, I think that's just going to continue to grow. 78%, I believe. I think that number is going to get higher and higher. But that secondary, they did have a rough first half. They did have a lot of issues guarding people like Puka Nacua and Tutu Atwell and Cooper Kupp. I mean, that's a lot to guard. Those are 3 very talented receivers. But it sort of crept into the bend, don't break mentality there in the second half. It doesn't have to always be perfect. It's not always going to be perfect, but finding a way in big moments is sort of what this defense is about. And that was no different yesterday. They made the plays when it mattered. They got turnovers when it mattered most. And that's often what results in a win for the Steelers team, is when that defense just comes up big when you need them most.
A lot of complimentary football in that fourth quarter, Arthur, a lot of it.
Hey, defend every blade of grass. Absolutely. Every blade of grass.
Well, there was a lot of Steelers fans there in LA yesterday. They're always showing up on the West Coast. I mean, look at these terrible towels in SoFi Stadium. I'm sorry, LA, but Pittsburgh is everywhere, and they made this feel like a home game. And it wasn't just in SoFi Stadium this year. We also saw Steelers fans show up in Las Vegas. I mean, look at the excitement, the intimidation on their faces. They were in full swing without a doubt. So we appreciate when all of the Steelers fans show up. Personally, I like to brag about the way that Steelers fans show up out on the West Coast. But Moats, question for you. When you show up in an opponent's stadium and their home crowd is on your side, how much of a difference does that make in your energy playing an away game? It has to impact it in some roundabout way, right? Look at Kenny Pickett there. He's got a whole fan club.
Listen, it is nothing like it. Oh my goodness, man. When you're watching some of these teams and the opposing quarterback has to go silent count, or they're getting booed during the introductions. I think back Chargers game, back when they were in San Diego, I believe it was L. Bell, Mike Vick playing in this particular game. But yeah, booing the Chargers in their home stadium. This is the thing that we do. I'll take it back even further because I wasn't always a part of the Pittsburgh Steelers. I've been on the other side of this thing where you come out for your home crowd and you see terrible towels and you're like, what is going on, man? And ultimately, man, it's one of the most deflating feelings that you could ever have when you're supposed to be seeing your home colors and it's these terrible towels and everybody in here wearing black and gold. It's just like, how did this happen? Whoever's in control of the tickets need to get fired today.
Well,
silent count again for the home team yesterday. Silent count for the home team.
It's crazy, man. It is no worse feeling when you're the home team, but there's no better feeling than when you're the away team and you're like pumping up the crowd, like get loud in here. Yeah.
Well, we were definitely impressed by the amount of Steelers fans that showed up in SoFi Stadium. We can celebrate that here on Victory Monday, but Steelers fans will be back at home in Acrisure Stadium as next up for the Pittsburgh Steelers is the Jacksonville Jaguars on Sunday at 1 p.m. Thank you guys so much for your wonderful insight breaking down the Steelers win over LA today. This has been the Steelers Extra Point presented by Microsoft Surface, and we'll see you next week.